Good morning, good afternoon, and good day to everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this webinar that will focus on how Pagero can help companies all over the world increase efficiency and automate your accounts receivable processes. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Eric Mood. I've been with Pagero for just over 8 years. I'm currently responsible for Pagero's operations in North America, and I'm based out of our offices in Chicago, Illinois. And with that said, and as mentioned before, the plan is not just to focus on the North American marketplace today. I'll try to give you guys a more global and more high-level overview of the landscape and how you can approach this, both from a local as well as from an international aspect. And before we deep dive into the Pagero offering, I'd like to give you a recap or an overview of how things are looking today. How companies traditionally handles their invoices. All companies that sell something, can be services, products, or whatever, they send invoices. That's simply how we collect money from our customers. So I think that everyone more or less can relate to this. And as you probably know, there are three main ways to submit invoices today. We have the paper or the mailing version. We have the PDF attached to an email, or we have something called electronic data interchange, and also known as EDI or e-invoicing. And these different ways, they of course have its pros and cons. And if we start to the left with the paper version, I'm sure that many of you can agree with me that this is a very labor intensive and costly process, because we handle everything internally. We print the paper out, we put it in an envelope, we pay postage, and we give it to the mailman, and it takes time and it costs money. But I also believe that the biggest issue with this is that we have zero track and traceability, so we don't know whether our customer has received the invoice or not. So it's fairly hard for us to manage cash flow. And I'm sure that everyone can agree with me that you at least once or twice have called the customer, asked for the payment, and they haven't received the invoice, and they ask you to send the invoice again, which is obviously not ideal. But I also believe that the main reason why companies are still doing this is that because it doesn't require any changes in our day-to-day process. This is how we've always done it, and it works for us. And we don't have to invest in any new system or train or educate people for a new process. And the second option is the PDF attached to an email version. Very common here in North America, very common in Europe, as well as in Asia Pacific. This is better process for the suppliers for sure. It's more cost effective for the suppliers, and it's also fairly automated for the suppliers if you have that capability in your ERP today, so that you can send PDF attached to an email directly from your financial system. But still, we don't have any track and traceability. We don't know whether our invoice has been received or not. And it also requires us to have an updated customer directory with all the email addresses, etc., for it to work. And then we have the third option, and that has actually been around for quite many years now. And this is called EDI or e-invoicing. And this is true electronic transfer of an invoice from one ERP or business system to another using a structured data format. And the traditional approach, I mean, let's say, has been around since the 80s. And companies might see this as quite tricky and a bit hard, because traditionally this has required a lot of IT resources, and it's more than often very project based, since I set up a one-to-one connection from my ERP to my customer's ERP. And we also have to manage changes when it's up and running, and then we also have to fulfill customer specific requirements when it comes to both way of communicating, formats, as well as content. But when it's up and running, then it works fairly smooth, and we will achieve full track and traceability. We will know when our invoice has been received by our customer, and we will know that we will get paid. And it's also in some industries and countries, it's a huge business advantage, because this is growing tremendously, and more companies as well as governments are moving towards a fully electronic approach, and they set requirements on us as a supplier to submit our invoices via EDI or in a structured format. And if we look at the adoption of true e-invoices in the world, that obviously vary from country to country and from industry to industry. We can see that Northern Europe and South America are considered as leaders in this field. And there are basically two reasons for this. In South America, all invoices must be sent to and approved by the local tax authorities for tax collection purposes. And this is called the clearance model, which I will talk more about in the next slide. And in Northern Europe, the governments, they have sort of approached this in a slightly different way. So they have put a strong recommendation or even a legal requirement on all governmental entities that they should be able to receive invoices in an electronic format. And the countries in the Nordics, they didn't do this because of tax collection, since the tax gap is fairly low. They did this for automation purposes and to increase efficiency and make it easier for companies to do business domestically. And the interesting part is that we can see that this is now also this has now also been adopted by the businesses, and they are leveraging these requirements as well. So in Northern Europe, we have both the governments as well as the businesses that we see as strong drivers to this development. And we can see that more and more countries and industries are moving towards an electronic approach. And if we look at the drivers once again, we see that it's both the business to business side that drives this, as well as the governments all around the world. But they do this for different reasons. And again, if we look at the large businesses, they want to receive electronic invoices to get rid of the paper and the manual process. They want to achieve full track and traceability. They want to reduce late payment fees, and they want to strengthen their relationship with their suppliers. So what many companies are doing is that they're connecting either to a value-added network that gives them access to a supplier network, almost like the telephone industry. I connect to T-Mobile here in the US, and they will connect my call. Or another option is that they develop a portal solution, which they force all their suppliers into, which can be a bit tricky as a supplier to manage when this grow. Log into multiple portal solutions to create your invoices. That is not ideal. And if we look on the government side, they are driving this due to two reasons. Again, to get back to the clearance model, where all invoices must be approved by a governmental, approved and sent through a governmental hub. Ultimately, what they would like to do is that they would like to collect tax and make sure that companies pay their taxes. And the higher the VAT or tax gap, the bigger the chances are that the country will apply this model. And as mentioned, it's very common in South America. Italy has recently adopted this model in Europe, and so that requirement will come into force 1st of January 2019, which means that all businesses locally in Italy must send their invoices electronically and receive their invoices electronically, and this should be sent through a governmental hub called SDI. And we also believe that France and Spain will follow what Italy is doing. So very interesting to follow this development. And the other way that we see are growing tremendously, something that we call the post-audit model, which means that you have to send your invoice electronically, but you can still do the tax reporting afterwards, so it doesn't have to go through governmental hub. But the governments are doing here is that they're introducing an e-invoice mandate, saying that all invoices must be that are sent to the governmental entities must be sent and received electronically. And this basically goes for all member states in the European Union. We can also see some countries in Asia are moving towards this. And we also believe that the US government will eventually go this way too. But until then, here in North America, it's 100% driven by the businesses. And how they are doing this is that they are adopting an infrastructure that companies will connect to using access points. So Peppol is a good example of such an infrastructure. I will not go into details regarding Peppol, but there are different type of infrastructures and platform being used within a specific country. So you can sort of see that as a highway for transferring electronic business documents to and from the government. But the challenge that many suppliers are facing today is that we have our private customers and they are using a variety of services, and some are connected to supplier network, and some of them wants us to log into a portal solution. And then we have the public customers that are setting requirements on us to submit invoices either via governmental hub or some sort of infrastructure. And this can be quite expensive and hard to fulfill for a supplier, since you have to adopt multiple processes. So this is where Pagero comes in, and this is where Pagero brings tremendous value to the market. We believe in a standardized invoicing process. We will help you both to fulfill customer specific requirements when it comes to invoicing, but at the same time increase efficiency and ensure compliance in multiple markets, as well as lower the overall cost by outsourcing the distribution of this invoice. For you guys who haven't yet met us, let's start with some hard facts. We are a European-based company, HQ in Gothenburg, Sweden. We have additional office sites in 18 countries in the world. As you can see from the map, we are 300 plus employees, 75 developers within the R&D department. So we focus quite a lot on development, and we constantly try to come out with new value-added services to our clients. We're a decent sized company, $44 million in revenue, growing 30 to 50% every year. So it's a great company to be at. A lot of things going on. And we do have a very large business network, and 2.5 million companies are connected. And we have clients in plus 75 countries. So we are considered as a very global player in this field. And it's important for us to be able to provide good support both locally as well as globally. And we developed our platform Pagero Online, which is a cloud-based platform around 2008. And this platform enables companies to communicate and exchange e-business documents between different ERPs. And when I say e-business documents, I'm referring to purchase orders, order responses, dispatch advices, obviously invoices, price catalogs, etc. So basically documents within the purchase to pay and the order to cash area. Our main focus for today will still be on the customer invoice side, the accounts receivable side, but I just want to mention that we can help you within other areas as well for the future. And again, as mentioned, we have a large business network of 2.5 million companies connected. And so as soon as I connect to the platform, I will automatically be able to communicate with the entire business network through one standardized connection. And I'm going to show you how that works in a couple of slides down. And our mission is, of course, to transport a document from A to B electronically. So let's say from you as a supplier to your customer. But since all the documents are going through Pagero Online, our platform, we can do quite a lot more. That brings a great value to you and to your organization. So we have a whole range of compliance services, for example, and we can help your company to both become and stay compliant in various markets all around the world. We can also validate information prior to the delivery of an invoice to make sure that everything is correct and then everything fulfills the legal requirements in a specific country. We can also enrich certain information to help you to fulfill customer specific requirements when it comes to content. And I'll give you a couple of samples regarding this as well as we go. And just to visualize the service and show you what the platform does. And so in order to start working with us, you as a company will establish a connection from your ERP to Pagero's cloud-based platform, Pagero Online, which is the globe in the middle here. And I mean, your ERP, it could be SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Sage, IFS, whatever you guys are using. We are completely ERP agnostic, and we can work with any business or financial system. So basically what you will do is that you will set up an EDI connection to the platform. We agree on how to communicate and what type of invoice format you would like to send. And when this is done, you'll have access to the entire business network of 2.5 million companies. And you can send to one customer, to 5 customers, or to 500 customers, as long as they are connected to the business network. And we will of course give you full access to all companies using Pagero as their service provider for receiving e-invoices. And we will also give you access to all the public administration in most of the countries in the world that are utilizing a standard infrastructure or a governmental hub, like we talked about before, like PEPAL in the UK or SDI in Italy or GIP in Turkey, and so on and so forth. So you will have full access to that. And I also want to emphasize that we believe in having an open network, which means that you will also be able to reach other e-invoice networks via interoperability. And this is something that we invest quite a lot in. It's important for us to help our clients in achieving a standardized e-invoicing process so that you guys can have one partner to reach all your clients, regardless of what format they use, regardless of what network they are connected to. So we're not just distributing the invoices electronically, we're also converting all documents that go through the platform. So we sort of work as a translator in between, and this really makes it possible to scale and for you guys to connect hundreds or thousands of customers using a variety of services and formats. But you only need one connection to Pagero since we act as the link in between you and your clients, handling both the distribution as well as the format conversions. So we believe that that this should truly be like the telco industry. I mean, I'm here in the US and I use T-Mobile again as my operator, but I can still text and call my friends as in Australia or in Spain. And I can do this since T-Mobile has interoperability roaming agreements with its competition. And Pagero, we have an entire department only working with this. And we're constantly trying to set up new interoperability agreements with other operators to give you access to the largest network in the world. And the reality is that not all companies can receive electronic invoices. That's just how it is, even if the market is moving towards that. So what do we do with the rest? Because we don't want you guys to have 2 or 3 separate invoice processes. So what we also do is that we offer PDF distribution and printing services globally. This means that you will be able to achieve 100% digital invoicing from day one, and we distribute the invoice in the preferred way by the client. But the process remain digital between you as a supplier and Pagero Online. And Pagero, we work proactively in order to move the printed or the PDF invoices to becoming true e-invoices as the network grows. And as mentioned before with the value-added service, just want to go through some of them very briefly. We do have an e-archive. So we store all the invoices according to local legislation in each market, and we store all invoices in 4 different formats: the sent format by you, the received format by the customer, our internal format, as well as a human readable PDF. So we store everything, which is quite unique, I believe. And we also can offer digital signatures. Some countries, they have a requirement that you have to put a digital signature on an invoice. in order for it to be valid. That is something that we can do too. And we can also help you with enrichment services in order for you guys to fulfill customer specific requirements when it comes to content, because this can be quite tricky when you work with e-invoicing in general, that your clients, they will have different requirements when it comes to content. So instead of you having to set up multiple customizations on your end, you send the invoice as it is to Pagero, and we add or change or remove that information before we send it to the client. And a good example could be VAT or tax on roll level. Some ERP system, they can't produce that in the format. They can only produce tax or VAT on the header level. But some customers will require this online, and that is something that we can add after you've sent the invoice to us in order to fulfill that specific requirement set by that specific customer. Good. So that's just a brief overview of what we do and what we help our clients with on the AR side. I also like to take this opportunity to give you guys two good examples of companies who has managed to turn a requirement into business opportunity or into business advantage. That's HP as well as Duka. So if you start with HP, they started to work with Pagero in Finland a couple of years ago. And the reason why they partnered up with us was in order for them to fulfill some customer requirements regarding e-invoices. And this partnership has now grown into 29 countries where we help them. So we help them with multiple requirements in various markets. And they have over 2,000 customer connections through the Pagero platform. And the interesting part here is that they managed to decrease the turnaround time of an invoice from 7 days down to 2 hours by moving over to an electronic process compared to the traditional paper version. And I mean, that has a direct impact on their cash flow because they ultimately get paid quicker if they send an invoice electronically, since the customer, they will receive it right away and they will be able to process the invoice right away. In Duka is another good example. They work with us in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Austria, Turkey, as well as Italy, due to the upcoming requirement now in Italy for 2019. And they calculated on this, and they save 81% per invoice in money and in time, which is quite a significant number. And especially Duka, they send quite a lot of invoices, so the savings are obviously quite big, which is great. And that was about it. I just wanted to give you guys a fairly good overview of Pagero and what we can help you with on the accounts receivable side. If you would like to get more information about this, or if you have questions, please feel free to contact us. Other than that, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and thank you.